Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your boy, Average Fisherman. Today we're going to dive in a little video. We're going to talk about a little tournament that I fished this last weekend. It was the MLF Big Five, the BFL, Phoenix Bass Fishing League. A lot of names for it. It was a 2-day event, and we're going to cover all the way from the beginning of pre-fishing, what I was doing, what worked, what didn't work, and what just sucked in today's video. I think it's really important that you see videos like this. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this video today. Okay, so we're going to dive into today's video. I really don't want to make this video. I would rather have the video be made the other way, where I was like, hey guys, I smashed the fish. This is what I did. I took this place. But I think it's important because you don't see a lot of videos on the internet explaining what went wrong and what didn't go right. So I think it's important for all you aspiring anglers out there that are coming up, and some of these younger kids that are watching my videos. I think it's important for you guys to see the failure. We all learn from failure. It makes us grow. It makes us a better angler. It makes us a better person. So I'm going to walk you guys through my pre-fishing. I'm going to walk you through my, the day one of the tournament, because it was 2-day tournament with a cut line being at 36. I didn't make the cut, unfortunately, but I learned a lot from the whole experience, which you should always learn something from your pre-fishing, tournament fishing, your whole experience. So we're going to talk about the who, what, when, where, why again. All right. So coming into this tournament, it was a 2-day tournament. All right. It wasn't a 1-day, wasn't a 2-day, like total, combined weight. There was a cut line. Okay. And how you approach a tournament like that is completely different than you approach a 1-day tournament. How? Well, great question. The answer to that is you need to have enough fish not to sustain you just for the 1 day, but obviously 2 days. And you also need to have the quality of fish that's going to catapult you to the top. So it doesn't make sense for you to go catch 20 pounds on the first day if you don't think you can go, if you don't go burn on your fish the first day, because if you think you can make it last 2 days, and what I mean by that is if you can catch 25 pounds out of your spot, okay, that's great. Some guys approach it different. Some guys will just get everything in the first day. But then the problem is, what do you do the second day? And then somebody else catches them, okay? My thing is, if you know you can get 16 pounds is always the magic number on Rayburn. If you get 16 pounds the first day, all right, and you could squeeze another 14, 15 pounds out second day and use some of your secondary stuff that you found, you have a very good chance of being, very successful and definitely in the top 5, if not top 3. Okay, so going into the tournament, I started thinking about a few things. One, I did my research. Okay, this time last year, they had a Bassmasters Open down here, and I did a lot of research on what baits were doing well, what guys were doing. You can find it on YouTube, okay? Anybody that's resourceful and, you can get on YouTube and type in Samrayburn fishing fall or September or whatever, October, and there's going to be videos that come up. There's going to be articles that come up, and there's going to be tournament results from last year, and it's really important to do that. So I was sitting down, I was doing my research, and this time last year, the water temperature was still in the mid to high 80s. Okay, this time last year, it was still really hot. With that being said, this year, when I was out pre-fishing, I found water temperature as low as 79. I also found it as high as 82. Last weekend, the water temperature was 84 degrees, 85 degrees. It dropped 4 to 5 degrees, and 6 degrees in certain areas in an entire week. Okay, so how I approach this, I did my research. I'm like, all right, that winning bag, if you can find the answer to that, came from this section of the lake. And what's important about that is, what did I say? This section of the lake. This lake fishes completely different at any given time, north, mid, we say south, and that east arm, okay? You've got Buck Creek and then, Mill Creek and all that over there. It can fish completely different at any given time of the year. Fall transition time. Yeah, it can be tough. Okay. It's usually my tougher time until they get into that full swing fall transition, because coming into the tournament last year, it was one off brush piles. It was one off some offshore stuff. The shallow bite, it was there, but, it was more of a summertime shallow bite, right? It was still in that summertime pattern. Late summer, early fall. This year, I feel like the fish are already in a good transition mode. I was going to break my practice up into 2 areas of the lake that I really wanted to fish, the north end and then, mid-south. So I started thinking about this fall transition and, how the lake sets up different all the time. So let's take you into Thursday. I get up, it's nasty. The weather conditions are just, it's misty, raining. And let me touch on that real quick. It's always important to look at your tournament days. So Saturday and Sunday, right? I wish I was out there fishing right now. I wouldn't be talking to you guys. But look at the conditions when you're going to be pre-fishing, how it's going to be, and look at your conditions for Saturday. So Thursday was a cloudy, misty, rainy day. Okay. And, typically your darker baits are going to do better than on a bright, sunny day. So I knew that I was going to have to play with the color thing. So that's okay. We can adjust on the fly, right? Everybody can do that small adjustments on the fly. But what I was really concentrating on was I went to the north end of the lake to see how things were. I started out my first 2 or 3 hours in the morning idling, looking for spots that are out of the way, looking for spots that are not getting a lot of pressure, because right now Rayburn is getting an astronomical amount of pressure. It's getting hammered. It's all the championships are starting to get ready to come up. A lot of you had Bass Champs last weekend. You had the BFL this weekend. You've had a ton of boats in the last 3 weeks, if not 4 weeks. Tournaments have been just darn near every weekend, and guys are on the lake fishing a lot. So the fish are seeing a lot of baits. They're seeing a lot of things go through their living room. Can you imagine sitting in your living room and you're like, bloosh, bloosh, something's landing there every time, and it's not supposed to be happening, and it gets annoying. So the fish are completely overpressured right now. Now, guys are still going to catch them. Guys are still going to smash fish out. They're still going to do well, and it's always going to happen on Rayburn. Just because you're not catching them doesn't mean that somebody's not going to come in with a bag, okay? Magic number on Rayburn, like I said, is 16. You get that 16 pounds, you're doing well, okay? So, spent my time on the north end, idling around, looking for stuff that was different, going to areas that weren't the high pressure areas. You got the canyons, you got deer stand, you got all those places that have a lot of pressure. So I was trying to stay away from those things. So I found some fish early. I found some things that I thought could work. I really didn't want to fish deep, and I like to fish deep. Anybody that knows me, I do very well at certain times of the year, when they get in that pre-spawn type thing and they're pulling up on cover before they go in, even wintertime, man, you can locate them and just lean on them because, they're a little more predictable. And I knew that the fall transition was starting to begin because just by going on into these areas on the north end, one, the bait fish were starting to pull into the pockets. The bait fish were starting to kind of do their thing. Some of the bass were starting to chase, the balls of bait, pretty decent. And I thought to myself, I don't want to sit here and solely rely just on deep spots because it could be one of those things to where you pull up during the tournament day and your fish are gone with the wind. Okay. So I tried to find structure that the fish would be on. Okay. And, typically a lot of guys, and gals go out there and you can look in the drains for these fish and stuff like that. So I started out idling deep. I found some things that I liked structure wise, marked them. If I found something really good, I threw on it. Okay. If I got bit, I don't personally set the hook in my pre-fishing. Okay. If I get 3 or 4 bites, 5 bites, multiple casts, I will set the hook eventually on one to see the quality down there. I think it's important to see the quality. Now, the day before the tournament, I'm kind of more leery about doing that type of thing, but I always feel like you have to see what's down there. You got to see the quality of your fish. So I transitioned from the deeper stuff, and I went and I started checking shallow too. The bait fish are starting to get up there, pretty good in the pockets, and they're starting to get, in some really good looking areas. And I caught a lot of, when I was setting the hook, I caught a lot of fish that were like in that 1.5 pound range and things like that. And it just wasn't the tournament fish I was looking for. I was looking for healthy 3 pound plus fish. So I kind of went to a couple different areas. I found some good structure. I fished some structure that I thought was, really juicy. Okay. And somebody's probably thinking, well, if it was that juicy, why didn't you go fish it day one? It was juicy compared to what I had been seeing. Okay. I got out there. I had, first cast into this area. I had a bite. It was a good bite. One of those good thumps. And I just picked up and reeled back, didn't set the hook on the fish, cast it completely into a different section of the whole area, and was dragging along, doing my thing. Yeah, I was dragging. I was dragging a Texas rig, and just kind of working my way through this area. And I got another bite, so I reeled up. Didn't set the hook. Set up a different angle, different way, and kind of cast it out. Got another bite. This time I set the hook, and it was over 4 pounds, and I was like, awesome. That this is what you're looking for. And I could see them down there on my live scope. I could see multiple good fish down there. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I go ahead and I move on from that spot, and I go to a couple more, nice transition spots that, the fish typically like to transition in during the fall time. Found some stuff, got bit, went ahead and set the hook on one. It was like a 2 pounder, and I was like, all right, this is good. This is good solid stuff I could use here. And, pretty much that kind of concluded my day. I spent a lot of time graphing, a lot of time looking, a lot of time, painstaking time behind my graph. Okay. And I noticed that there was just a lot of boats up there. I mean, there's always a lot of boats up there, but there was a lot more boats than typically you're going to see. Because the tournament was taken off at Humphreys Pavilion, which is all the way on the south end of the lake. Okay. And depending on how fast you're running, it could take you, 25, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, depending where you're going. Okay. So, I was kind of like, all right, the odds of somebody finding some of the fish that I found are probably pretty high. No big deal. I felt confident that I could go back and still catch those fish, and I had marked it down as a probably day 2 thing, right? And I was like, all right, awesome. So, day 2 of practice. I get up. I'm feeling good. I feel great about what I found the day before. Today, it is partly cloudy, mostly sunny type thing. And I go out into an area that I had caught some big fish. Historically, during this time of year, I've seen big fish, and I got out there and I started graphing, looking. I seen some real big fish in the piles and things like that, and I seen some nice, healthy looking fish on some other types of structure that was leading into the pockets. So at Mid-Lake area where I was fishing, it was one of those deals that the fish weren't quite transitioning like they were in the north end yet. So, no big deal. Back it up a little ways, start looking, not, that 3/4 way, halfway thing, and I did find fish, and I did catch a couple things. I went ahead and set the hook on a few things, and they were just average size fish, nothing that I was going to hang my hat on per se. And I thought that, okay, well, let's go check this. So after a couple of hours of really looking, in those transition areas, looking offshore, I started to feel like I was forcing something that just wasn't there. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to waste the rest of my time I have and continue to just idle offshore looking, because the weekend before that I had marked some great, beautiful looking fish, caught one over 4 pounds. It was a very confident thing that I had in the area, and I went and checked it, and all the fish are gone. Now, they were either gone because of pressure, okay, which some of the fish I know got out there and they got suspended, and it was because of pressure. But the other thing, too, is that they're starting to do the transition. So if you've got 10 fish setting out, let's use a brush pile. If you've got 10 fish setting in a brush pile and you're in between like the beginning of a transition phase, 5 of those fish could pull up, or, 8 of those fish might start pulling up, and then they're all scattered all the way into the transition phase. And they get really hard to catch like that. You might get one here, you might not get one there, you might get bit over here, you might not even land on them. So I kind of started scrapping the idea of fishing in that area deeper, and I went to doing the number one thing that you can do on Samrayburn and slip up and get a good bag. I was covering water. Okay. I wasn't in panic mode. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little nervous that I wasn't finding what I wanted to there. And I just started covering water. And it was funny because you can tell that a lot of guys were starting to figure the same thing out, because you can watch the field that's out there practicing with you, and you see guys doing things, and the next thing you know, they're starting to do something different. And I guess probably by 11 o'clock, I had finally figured out a pattern that I was going to run with. And I knew that, with this pattern, I was probably only going to get 8 bites at most in the day in the area that I was fishing. I was confident that I was going to get at least 8 bites. And when I got those bites, I was going to have to execute properly. I was going to have to get the fish in the boat and, get lucky too, get blessed with, a good fish. So I hung my hat on staying shallow. I hung my hat on covering water, and I was like, you know what? Day 2, I could go up there and use that deep stuff. So I went ahead and ran back up. I checked the stuff, Friday that I had seen the big fish on. I caught a bigger fish out of, and they were gone. And when I say gone, I mean gone. There wasn't even, I don't know what had happened. I tried to follow them all the way in to see if they'd moved up or if they'd went out. They were gone. They pulled the Ninja Turtles, poosh, gone. And I was like, well, that sucks. So I didn't really panic or nothing. I was like, you know what? That's okay, because I know I've got areas up here that I could go fish to that, are shallow and, just cover water, right? I know some very successful fishermen that just cover water. I don't know why they even pre-fish, because they just cover water. I guess it's important to go see if you get bit in those areas, but I mean, just cover the water, right? So that brings us into Friday night. I get home. I tell my wife, I'm like, she's like, what's wrong? I said, this is the first time going into a tournament ever that I cannot tell you, or that I can tell you confidently that I'm not confident in what's going to happen. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah, I just, I'm not sure it's either going to happen or it's not. And I kind of had the mentality of going into this with a 0 or 0. So I get out there Saturday morning and, get lined out. I'm boat number 20 to go. I'm excited. I'm like, okay, cool. That means I'm going to get to my area. And, I'm not confident in what's going to happen, but I am confident in what, getting there first to cover the water. So I get there, first cast, I'm working my bait, nothing. Second cast, bam, put a 2-pounder in the boat. All right. This is what I was talking about. This is going to work out like this, right? Get a little further, and I didn't have a real long area because I'd figured out that a lot of the fish were only setting up in a certain area and had to have the right kind of cover and the right depth. So there wasn't a lot of it because the lake is slightly falling, the water's getting dingy, and that played a big part in where I was fishing. Then I was throwing a frog, and I was throwing a swim jig, and I was throwing, moving baits and things like that, covering water. And Man, after that, they started blowing up on stuff and they weren't getting it. And I switched it up because, I learned from my last experience when they were blowing up on the frog and they were sharking it or knocking it in the air. My co-angler was like, golly, dude, like those are some nice fish blowing up on that thing and they're just knocking it plumb out of the water or slapping it. And I was like, yeah, well, what's that tell me? We talked about it in my last video. They're not really wanting it. They're just trying to get it away from them. So I switched up to a little swim bait. It was a little Savage Gear swim bait, smaller. It's about 4.5 inches, match the hatch. That's the size of the bait that's in the water. And I started, covering water with that. Wasn't getting really bit, and my co-angler caught one, on something very similar. And, so I knew it was going to work. And I get into an area that just looked big fishy. And I didn't even go over there and practice because I just kind of wanted to stay away from it because there were several boats that was over there messing around. And I cast up there and I'm running a little swim bait, through stuff. And it just, one of those giant fish blow up, just boosh. I set the hook. And when I set the hook, I knew that, I didn't probably get her very well because she was in some thick cover when she got it. And I went ahead and gave it a second. I laid the pine the second time, try to make sure I got it stuck good. She had a lot of hay grass on her and she was coming and she come up and shook. And, I was just kind of like, oh man, this is a giant fish. I said, this is a giant, my co-angler's like, I think I need to get the net. And I said, yeah, please get the net, sir. So she's coming to me. I get a very good look at her because it's pretty clear back there and she's just shaking under the water. And at that time I'd seen the hook in her mouth and I knew I barely had her hooked. So then, I'm like, all right, I got to get her in. So I start winching on her to keep it tight, get her in. And she is just a big one. She is just shaking under the water. Like that fish had been hooked before and she knew what to do. And she got up to the boat and I'm getting her coming. She's coming, man. And she shakes and I see my bait pop out and she just swims right off. I looked her right in the eyes and she said, not today. And it was a fish that was 6+ pounds for sure. And, my co-angler was like, oh, that sucks. And, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, that sucks. So I didn't let it get me down. I continued to go on. And, man, it just got tough. It got so tough that I started to question, like, did I screw up? Did I just not use my brain? And I started catching a lot of smaller fish that weren't even keepers, and I was really surprised they were eating some of this stuff. Like the bait was just as big as them and they were still eating it. And I gave me confidence still that I was going to slip up and end up going past, 2 or 3 pounder and get them right. And it just didn't happen. And I switched up and I went into an area that I found some beautiful hydrilla growing, and it's thick and it goes out a good ways. And anytime you have hydrilla, you're going to have bass. And I picked up the number one thing that I have confidence ultimately in, and I have the most confidence in, and it's a chatterbait. This time of year, you can run the bluegill pattern, the B Heights Delight. And man, I dyed the short truce tail, on the Zacos and green pumpkin and, made it look like a bluegill because a lot of the bluegill or brim, they just got done spawning and they were up in those shallow little areas. And I could see on my live scope bluegill beds here and there, and I could see fish around them. So I start running the chatterbait and bam, like my second cast, I get one about 3.5 pounds. I'm like, sweet. I've got a long ways to go because, the day prior when I came into this area, I just, drove through and I marked all the hydrilla that I could find in there. And I just marked it. And I thought, there's a lot of this to still fish. And I fished it thoroughly and I fished it clean and I didn't get another bite. And I couldn't believe it. So I kind of spent the rest of my day going and hitting stuff that I thought was going to be successful, and it wasn't. And to kind of wrap this video up, okay, because I don't want to make it too long. We're approaching 24 minutes. I think it's important to say that as everybody started to come in and have their weights, they just they were low. Last weekend, it took over 20-something pounds for 3 fish to get it, to win. It took roughly 15 pounds to just get a check for 3 fish last weekend. This weekend, to get in top 36, I think it took 11 or 12 pounds to get the cut line. And guys, the guy that won it last weekend, he barely had 11 pounds this weekend. And a lot of my buddies that I know, a lot of them struggled. Okay. And some of them did well. Some of them just had, one of them just caught a solid bag and, he did well. And I think a lot of it has to do too with the fish transitioning. They're transitioning and they're starting to get spread out. And, to wrap this video up, I took you through my mindset. I took you through what I did, how it kind of went. And it just was one of those deals to where it just didn't pan out. And I'm okay with that. I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. Okay. Didn't kind of execute. I lost some fish, and that probably would have got me to a day 2. And that's going to happen. And it's going to be out of your control sometimes. So, with that being said, I would love to be out there right now fishing. I would love to be out there finishing up a day 2. But it's also giving me time to reflect as an angler and as a person and think about those things I could have done better. Knowing that it was a fall transition starting to occur, maybe I shouldn't have wasted too much time on day 1, messing around, looking deep. Maybe I should have tried not to force it, because I was wanting to do something that I wanted to happen, and it just necessarily wasn't. It was there, but it wasn't. And, I feel good because there was some MLF pro guys that were fishing this thing, and they didn't do good. I'm not saying that as an excuse for myself, but to try and look at the hindsight, it was tough this weekend, and it sucked. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the lake. And just so you guys know, to finish up, the lake is in a big-time transition, I feel like. It's not in the peak of transition. It is in the start of a transition. The water's cooling. They're talking about the upper 50s, very, very low 60s. In mid 50s, I think I see next week with a cold front coming in. And I don't remember getting this early cold fronts since I've lived down here around Samrayburn. It just has been hot. Typically, it's still hot right now. We've had, we're in Thanksgiving. I've been running around with, t-shirt and shorts. Like, it's just been hot. So I'm really curious to see what happens. I have the Outlaw Outdoors Championship coming up with my partner, Darren Taylor, in October, and I already think I have a feeling I know what we're going to probably try and do for that. And it's going to be interesting to see how the next couple weeks pan out. It's going to be interesting to see what wins today. And it's going to be interesting to see how this fall plays out with not as much grass being around. Are these fish going to traditionally do the same thing on Rayburn, or are they going to follow some different pattern? And to sum everything up, guys, I will tell you this. You're going to be at the tippity top of the world at 1 minute in the fishing world, and it will humble you just as fast as you climb that mountain to get there. And it's always very humbling to go out and know you gave it your best and you just didn't completely suck, and know that fishing conditions were tough and you still had the opportunity to make it. And I feel good about what I did. I wouldn't have changed anything what I've did. I stuck to my guns and I stuck to my wheelhouse, which is important, which I talked about in another video. Stick to your wheelhouse. I did that. And it just didn't pan out. When I was fishing my deep stuff, I had some big fish that were there. They just weren't biting. It'd have been cool just to get one out of the ordeal, to keep your confidence built and continue to roll with that momentum. But that's okay. So, guys, we're going to cut this video off now. It's been long enough. That's how I walked you through the weekend. And I think it's important to talk about the failures of fishing, tournament fishing, because there's not a lot about, that out there. And there's always a lot of how-tos and what to do and what not, what was successful. But we're going to talk about what was the unsuccessful part in this one. And I'm okay with that. So, guys, as always, I got to say, I've got a huge shout out to my sponsors, Old 18 Outfitters, guys. I love their rods. You guys really need to check out their rods. If you use Marler C at their checkout, okay, you're going to get, a discount, and it's going to help you out purchasing that new rod for that fall transition. And if I were you, I would look into getting a rattle trap rod. Okay. Something that's, you're going to put a lot of miles on. There's nothing better to start out with a new old 18 rod. I got to have a huge shout out to Gillzilla Pro Gear. Gillzilla, you can go check them out on their Facebook page at Gillzilla Pro Gear. They have the best looking jerseys, fishing jerseys, that's equivalent to, I'm not going to name some of these other companies, but they're also smart. They're made very well. They're vented on the sides. They have a hood because it still gets sunny this time of year. And as you can see, I got burnt. Okay. My fishing jersey that I have all my sponsors on, it doesn't have a hood. I don't like a hood on that one. But guys, go check them out at Gillzilla Pro Gear. Landing Gear Lanyards. Hey guys, go check him out on Facebook. He makes phenomenal lanyards for duck calls. All you duck hunters and everything coming in, you guys got to go check this guy out. He makes beautiful duck calls, or duck lanyards. I say that every time. Duck lanyards for duck calls. And, guys, go check out Platinum Nutrition in Jasper. You're not going to find any better protein shakes, teas, or anything else around in town. I go there every morning and I get my protein shake for breakfast. They're phenomenal, the girls there that make all these shakes, and they work really hard at making about 1,000 different flavor combinations there. And last, go check out Rep Sports, a supplement company. All you guys and girls out there trying to get fit, go to Rep Sports. Use code CHAD, #win, to get a big discount on the checkout for if you're trying to lose a little extra weight right now, because we all know the holidays are coming on. We're going to put a little bit on. Or, go check out their Raise Energy. I personally drink that, and I love it. It hydrates me on the water, guys. Hey, this video's been long enough, and the pity party is over. I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope you all continue to do well. And as always, guys and girls, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. I will catch you next time. And until then, tight lines, everybody. Out.